Okay, you guys ready? Let's start from Amar Rav Huna. Amar Rav Huna. See, we're on Daf Ches Amud Aleph. We're learning about Chazaka. It takes 3 years. Someone doesn't have the document that he purchased something, but he was in it for 3 years. So the original owner can't come and say that's mine. And if you think it's yours, where's the document that you bought it from me? He says, well, I had it for 3 years. I don't have to hold my documents longer than that. So now Rav Huna says, I'm a Rav Huna. Rav Huna is a second generation. Right over here. So I'm a Rav Huna. Rav Huna is the second generation Amayra. So if he's telling me something, it's a chiddush, something that we didn't have in the Mishnah. Rav Huna says, Shanim Shamru, when we said that it takes 3 years to make a chazaka, it has to be consecutive, 1 year after another. It can't be that you had it for a year, then you didn't have it, and then you had it again for a year. It has to be consecutive. My Kamashmalan, what is Rav Huna coming to tell me that I didn't know already from the Mishnah? Tanina, the Mishnah says that clearly. Rav Huna is a second generation Amayra. He has to tell me something that we didn't know in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, a chazaka is 3 years from day to day. Obviously, it has to be consecutive. Without Rav Huna, what would I have said? The Mishnah is referring to that it shouldn't be truncated. It shouldn't be cut off. It shouldn't be not full years. Like, for example, we had in the Mishnah an example of 3 months from the first year, 12 months in the second year, and 3 months from the third year. The Mishnah is telling me it needs to be 365 days times 3. Not that opinion. That's what I mean. However, I still could have separated those years, 365, wait a year, 365, wait a year, 365, wait a year. I could have done that. Kamash Rav Huna that says you can't do that. So the Mishnah wouldn't have told me. Mishnah just told me it needs to be complete. It didn't tell me that it needs to be consecutive. Rav Huna's telling me that it needs to be consecutive. But it could be spread out. Kamash Rav Huna is coming to tell me that it can't be spread out. It needs to be 1 year after another. Now, the explanation for this, why Rav Huna says this, is that the original owner that we're claiming to him, why didn't you protest? If you think it's really yours, why didn't you protest when he was there? He could say, well, I saw that he wasn't serious anyway, because he would always leave it and he wasn't there the whole time. So I didn't think I needed to protest. So it comes on Rav Huna and says, yeah, if you want to have a real chazaka, you have to be there. You have to take away that claim that the other person can have. Why did he protest? He said, well, he was always like not really there. Wasn't there all the time. Amar Rav Chama. Chama says, Rav Huna Basri the Muvri Bagdi. Rav Huna would admit that if there's a place where they leave the land, what's it called when they do this fallow? They leave it so the land should strengthen itself. So then that would be considered a chazaka. The Gemara says, Pshita, of course, if that's the way everyone does it, then good. It says, Lloyd, it's necessary, dikka the mover. Not everyone is doing it like that. Some people are doing it, some people are not doing it like that. You have 2 years to go to Yeah. That's an automatic fallow year, that's what they would do 1 year. A Shemitah year would be that fallow year, and they maybe would do another one some other time, or maybe they would just do it, every 7 years.
There's also some things that bring the land more than others.
Right. So, remember this fellow decided to leave the land fallow. What might we have said? I am adding in the word matzi. If it was really yours, then why didn't you treat it like yours? And why didn't you sow the land? Why didn't you plant? So Kamash Malan, it comes to teach us, Rav Chama, that Rav Huna would agree. it's very difficult to be the only one in the whole area that's plowing your field. All the machines and everything, and the guard, the watchman, you have to pay for everything on your own. You're the only guy that's there. If we're all doing this together, it becomes out much cheaper by the dozen. But if it's just one guy, that's why he's not doing it. He's an owner. He's not. He's acting like an owner, like the way an owner would behave if he's the only one there. Inami, another possibility could be the reason why he's doing it is because now it's going to produce more in the following years later. Okay. So after we've said this, Rav Huna says that the years need to be consecutive in order to get a chazaka, in order to have an assumed ownership, even though you don't have your documents. So after we said this, it goes like this. Tanan, in the Mishnah, in our Mishnah, Cheskas Abatim. There's a chazaka for a house. Someone lives in a house for 3 years and he doesn't have his document that says that he bought it. So once he's there for 3 years, we assume that it's his. Problem is that maybe he wasn't there consecutive. Maybe he wasn't there at night. Who's to know if he was there at night? No one knows if he's there at night. They see him maybe during the day, but not at night. So it could be that the original owner can say, you know why I didn't protest? You're telling me that if it wasn't my property, this is the purchaser. So you're telling me if it wasn't my property, we're telling the original owner that if it wasn't my property, you should have really protested. So they said the reason why I didn't protest is because I would come sometimes at night. I didn't see you there. So I figured it's not really yours anyway. You're just happen to be trying to, to shtick. But you know that it's not really yours. It's squatted. You know it's not really yours. That's why you're not there all the time.
Nobody spends 24, and people have jobs.
So 1 second. So the Gemara says, very good. The Gemara is going to get to that in a moment. But right now we have a problem because if it's not consecutive, according to Rav Huna, you lose the chazaka. Abaya says, Man Masar Abatim. Who would anyways testify that this person was there in the house for 3 years? You have to bring proof that he was there. Who would testify on that? Shivivi, that means the neighbors. Shivivi made the yadi be a mama of the neighbors know everything. Was one of the kids' tapes? Mrs. Pitkin. Can you lower your radio or something? They would holler across from one porch to another. Yeah. Okay.
Where the cameras before.
Right. Anybody with old windows knows the sound.
Well, there's this kids tape where when Zadie was young, it's about the Lower East Side. And in there they have like these neighbors that I heard you got a new thing, a new tape recorder. He says, that's not a tape recorder, that's my brother-in-law. He's singing Okay. So maybe the other view. Okay, so it's the neighbors. We answered the question. The neighbors know everything. Rava Amar.
This is good. We can help the one.
Rava Amar. Rava has a great tenant. Rava's teretz is like this. You know who's in the property that's testifying for the owner? There's someone that's actually in the property that's testifying for the purchaser. It's renters. The guy that's claiming that he's the owner has rented it out to people, and they're saying that we were there for 3 years, and we were renting it from this guy. So perfect. It's a perfect teretz. Amalei Rav Yemel Rav Ashi says not so fast. You can't trust the renters. They're biased. Why? If they don't say that it was that we're in it for 3 years, you know what's going to happen? You're going to have to pay rent, 3 years rent to this someone else, original owner. You better say that it's this guy, or else you lose all your rent money that you gave. You're going to have to pay it to this other guy and then try to get it back. Amalei, he says, Daini deshvili achidaini. So Rav Ashi says back, oh, that would only be like a low-class judge that would rule on something like that. Mila yaskinan, are we not dealing with? We're talking about that the renters are here They have all the money of the rent in their hand. They say, who would you like me to pay it to? We know that this guy was the owner for the last 3 years, or he was behaving as the owner for the last 3 years. Should we pay it to him? So notice they're not biased because they haven't paid the money yet. They could hand it this way, they could hand it that way. They're in the court and they're testifying that this person seemed to be the owner for the last 3 years. How did he seem to be the owner? I don't know. Maybe he was also in there. Maybe it was like, they have like the townhouses. You take this floor, he takes that floor.
It's actually a big problem on Zillow right now. People are finding vacant properties and renting it out as their own.
How do you find a vacant property on?
So on Zillow, if you want that's been listed for
Says
6
for
months,
rent.
and it's month to month until they get away with it.
You could also sometimes notice by the photos. You see in the photos that the house is empty. I think the photos posted.
Wow.
Drive by there one time, you don't see any cars. It's probably empty.
Wow. Unbelievable.
I mean, you don't see much.
So the squatter doesn't know their home's
Yeah, we just did our roof and someone called my wife saying something about the roof, this, we want to talk to you about some damage that he did to the roof, to the AT&T or something. I said, something's wrong. Why are they calling you? It's all under my thing. They're calling it something's funny. I said, but how would they know that we did the, so they can see in the city the things they could see, This was a fake. They were going to tell us we did damage, and then really there's going to be a big thing, but if we pay just $45, we'll drop it. Okay.
They call claiming that they have IRS.
Oh.
Which IRS never calls them. They just send you the worst letter ever.
Amar Marzucha. This is the following Gemara is a highly complicated Gemara because there's several versions to how this works. And in yeshiva, it's like this is a classic Gemara where you try to read it you have to read it several different ways in order to get it clear. We're just going to follow with Rashi. Marzucha says, Bitan Vamar. See, we were saying that the person's there, he says he's there for 3 years, and the witnesses say he's there for 3 years. Okay, so good, there for 3 years. If the guy says, no, you weren't there for 3 years, at least if the ma'arer, if the protester says, if he actually comes up and says, I want to know for sure that you were there by day and by night, then he has a real claim. You're going to have to go and satisfy that claim. Normally, you just say, witnesses say, yeah, they were there for 3 years. You don't have to get into it by day and by night. But if he says, no, I want to know that it was accurate day and by night, you're going to have to satisfy that and find witnesses. Maybe Marzucha would agree. Now, that's only if he actually claims that. He's claiming that I came at night and you weren't there, and I want to know for sure that you were there. Prove it. Maybe Marzucha would agree. None. That if the original owner is a peddler, he goes from city to city, even if he isn't the one that says, even if he doesn't say himself that I want you to prove it, that you were there by day and by night, we make the person prove it. And the reason is because he doesn't have the awareness that maybe the person wasn't there by day and by night. Maybe every time this guy comes to town, which is not so often, he's home every few months, comes home because he's a peddler. The guy hears that he's coming and leaves the house, and the guy never sees that he's there. The reason why I didn't protest because every time he comes to town, the guy's not there. So if the original owner is a peddler, then we'll actually make the claim on his behalf and say we want the person that's living there to bring proof that he's there by day and by night.
Excuse me, so we're saying that is that what we're doing? We're saying that we're making the person who's saying that it's his who's being one mostly from the real owner to bring proof.
Yeah. We're going to get into who's the mitzi really, but what happens is here we're just talking about, does the Bezdin ever stick up for someone without the person sticking up for themselves? So
Yourself?
Yisaimim is a good example. or lekuche. Sometimes someone purchased something. They'll make a taina for him because he doesn't know himself to make that claim. So here we're saying that there's another possibility where the Bezdin will make a claim for someone because he doesn't have the awareness of how to make that claim because he wasn't around. Now, Maidi Rav Huna. Now the Gemara goes back to tell us about Rav Huna. Rav Huna was the one earlier. Taisus is bothered by this. Why the Gemara jumps back now? Rav Huna said that it needs to be consecutive. Rav Huna would agree that if it's a store in Mechuzah, which is only made to be used by day and not by night, there was a certain type of stores where people would live in. People would live in the store. The front of the store they sold, and the back of the store they lived in. They have this. Sometimes they have these like fortune teller, tarot card readers. There's like one little room in the front, and the whole family is in the back.
The
Chinese
laundry, excuse the language, in the Bronx. The family lived in the loft
upstairs.
above.
Right.
Yeah, I remember walking in, and then you'd see nobody, and then all of a sudden the head would pop up.
Yeah.
I got the neighborhood country store. It's a grocery store. And
Right. Right. So, Masech the Sukkah, they have the potters that they live in the back, and they sell their things in the front. So, so Rav Huna would agree that you don't have to be there by night if you have a store, because no one lives in those stores. That's the normal way of living it. Okay. Rami Bar Chama, Baravuka Bar Chama, Zavanu Amsabadi, they bought a cleaning lady, maid. They bought this maid together. This one worked for 1 year, year 1, year 3, and year 5. I would have learned this Gemara Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, but that's not how the commentaries say it, because that's how it works with cleaning ladies, something like that. But and then this one used it for all the even numbers, which is 2, 4, and 6, right? 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6. So they divided it up. Well, Nafikir Elevate. Someone comes and says, "What are you doing with that maid? That maid. It belongs to me." So they come to Rava. Rava says to them, "My time Abdisuachi. Why did you divide it up like that? Why didn't you do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3? Why did you do 1, 3, 5 and 2, 4, 6? Why did you divide it like that?" The reason is you had a concern that if you would do 1, 2, 3, then one of you would claim that you have a chazaka and the other person doesn't own it. So you were trying to avoid getting a chazaka, any of you getting a chazaka, by making it odd and even, right? Making it so that the fact that you don't have a chazaka against each other means that you don't have a chazaka at all. And therefore, that third party that comes from the outside that says that he's really the original owner and you guys just stole this maid, he's the one, he has the real claim and you don't have any.
You get a chazaka after 3 days. This says first, third, and 5th year.
Yeah. So this is the year. The chazaka would be with years. That's what it seems.
Oh.
But since they bought this maid servant, like jointly,
They don't have a document. Oh, well, you want to say that you just join them together as partners and you look at it like that. So 1 second. Very good. That's that's only if they didn't have a document. If they had a document that says that this is how they divided it, then the Rashi wants to learn this. Not Rashi, the Rashbam. The Rashbam wants to learn this is that you can actually take year 1, 2, and 3, even though they're owned by different people, they're being used by different people, and say that that's considered chazaka because you put them together as one entity. Rashi rejects this. Some other pshatim over here which he doesn't like. But if there would be an itch, if there would be a document that everyone knows that this is the way that you divided it up, then there would be an awareness in the city, and then the person should have protested because he knows that this is how you divide it up, that's odd and even, and then he should have protested. Amar Rava. Rava says, Achla kula chutz mi beis reva. Let's say the person that's we're considering the squatter, this person that's coming into the field, and there's an original owner. This is, what are you doing here? He says, what do you mean? I've been here 3 years. I've been using this as my own field for 3 years. He says, yeah, but there was one corner of this field that you didn't use, base reva, an area the size of a quarter of the kav, which you haven't been using. So kana kula chutz mi beis reva. Then he would acquire the whole field, but he doesn't have that corner that he never used because he never showed ownership, never showed that corner is really his. Amar Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua v'leyamanol the Basriya. When do we say that you don't have that corner, you don't have that base but that's if that corner should have been planted. It could, because it's able to be planted. But let's say it's a rock and you can't plant there. So then the fact that you got the whole field, then we're just going to throw that little piece of land in as part of the whole field because you can't plant that land anyway. What do you want me to do with it? So it's just going to get joined together. It's going to tag along with the larger field because there's no way of planting that anyway.
When we had once learned way back about fields that had been boulders, were they included or not included?
Yeah, that was quite a good discussion. Also, if there was a stream of water,
Yeah.
or trees, thing. So take a look at this. I don't remember exactly, but it's going to come back in Baba Basra later on. Maskefla Rav Bibi Barabaya has a question. That's the case. How do you acquire a rock? And we're talking about the rock. You acquire a piece of property. It's just a rock, right? What's some like famous rocks in Plymouth, something. How do you, Gibraltar.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Gibraltar. How do you acquire the rock? So, what you do is you put the animals there and you spread out fruits to dry. That's how you acquire it. You show ownership in another way. So you should have, if you wanted to acquire that property, you should have used the way an owner would acquire a rock. How would they acquire a rock? They would use it with whatever use you can get out of it, which is to spread things out. Today would be solar panels, but back then it was drying fruits. So if you didn't use it, so basically, according to this, you're not going to acquire it just because you acquired the larger area, because this small area you could have done something else to acquire it. Ahu damalei lechavri. Was a person. A lot of this chapter is going to be ahu damalei lechavri. One person said to his friend, because this is like classic court cases in Cheskas Abatim. Very small topics, like jumping from topic to topic, and it's all like different court cases that came up. There was a person that said to his friend, "My base, what are you doing in this house? It's my house." What do you mean? I bought it from you. I've been here 3 years. I lost my document because I've been here 3 years, but what do you want? I was actually living in this apartment, in this house, the whole time. I was living in the inside room. You're in the outside room. You're asking me why I didn't protest? Why do I need to protest? I've been living there the whole time. I'm living there as well. Now, Tosfos says that he even has Adim that he was living in there. Okay. I don't think Rashi learned like that. He says, I'm living there. I'm living in the same, I didn't protest because that was where I was living. This is like saying, like you were my guest, possibly. You're claiming that it's yours? I was always the host.
Yeah. So this is where you don't know who the Hamotzi Mechaber is.
Remember that story? But there was this guy who had always said Achmas Zarchim. So people would just come and lay on the couch and all this. And sometimes they didn't even know who the owner was. The owner would lay on the couch, he'd give away his own bed. There was one time there was a guy who was laying on the one couch and there was another guy laying on the other couch. So he says, look, turns to the guy on there and he says, I've been here already several days. How long do you think I could stay here? Didn't realize he's talking to the owner. But the owner says, I've been here for a very long time. No one's ever told me anything. Okay, so the guy says, you're in my house, so I didn't say anything. Okay, Asla Kamid Rav Nachman, come to Rav Nachman. Amalei, Rav Nachman says to the guy that purchased it, the purchaser, still brara chilascha, bring proof that you've been there 3 years. It's telling the guy that's purchased it to bring proof. Amalei Rav says, Dina hachi or hachi dina, that's the law. He's been there 3 years. This original owner is coming to take it out of his hands. and he's the one that needs to bring proof that he was living on the inside apartment. Why are you putting the onus on the guy that's been there 3 years, the purchaser? You should put that on that responsibility to bring the proof on the guy that's now trying to extract it from him. He's the one that's extracting. He's the mighty. Okay. Gemara says, Rami de Rava de Rava, Rami de Rav Nachman de Rav Nachman. This is very odd because we have the exact case with exactly the opposite opinions. Because take a look at this. You see, right here, Rav is the one that's saying the purchaser is the machzik. The purchaser is the one that has it. The original owner is the extractor. That's what Rav is saying. Rav Nachman is saying, no, the purchaser is extracting it. Okay, now we're going to have another case where we'll see exactly the opposite. There was a person that says to his friend, Kol nechsi de beim bar sisin mizavin. All the property of Bei Bar Sisin, I'm going to sell to you. Well, it's a good business deal. He sold it. There was one property, like in England, the houses have names. So there was one manor, something manor. So there was one house that was called Bar Sisin Manor. So one property was called Bar Sisin. Amalei. So the seller says to the purchaser, I love the Bei Bar Sisin. By the way, it's called Bei Bar Sisin. And I sold you all the Bar Sisin properties, but that house happens to be, although its name is like that, but that doesn't mean that it really is. It's like the homemade vodka. It doesn't mean that it's really homemade. That's just its name, and it really has nothing to do with Bar Sisin. It's just its name. Okay, we just gave him that name. Just it was a cute name. We gave it the name, but it has nothing to do with Bar Sisin. So that property is not yours. Sold you all the properties of Bar Sisin, not that one. Also, they come to Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, you're trying to extract it from the purchaser. Purchaser is the one that has it. The original owner is the extractor. Exactly the opposite than by us. In our case, where we were saying that the purchaser is the extractor. In this case, Bar Sisin, the original owner. The original owner is the extractor. It's exactly the opposite. Who Rav Nachman, who is the one that has it in his hand, and who's the one that's extracting it? Rav Nachman just flipped it on us. Amalei Rava, and Rava's response to Rav Nachman, he says, Dina hachi, the purchaser is the one that is the extractor. He's the one that's trying to buy this property. He's the one that has to prove it. Okay. Kasha the Rava, the Rava, Kasha the Rav Nachman, the Rav Nachman. It's a question on Rava, it's a question on Rav Nachman, it's a contradiction. But you had a blackboard, this would be a lot easier to show you each one. But it's basically, it would be opposite, like crisscross. They each switch their opinions. So
they're not really arguing. They just each have opinions. We're comparing.
It's a comparison.
They're two different generations.
It's a comparison. No, Rava.
Rav Nachman, Rava, and then Rava.
Yeah. But Rava quotes Rav Nachman and argues with Rav Nachman. We have that often.
Even though this is Rava, and then Rava, and then Rav Nachman.
Yeah, Rav Nachman is I don't know if he's a direct student of Shmuel.
Yes.
He's a direct student of Shmuel. But I think he was younger. I think he dealt with the younger generations. Well, the Gemara answers both questions like this. Rava, the Rava like Kash, there's no question, Rava and Rava, because Hassam over there. See, let's take a look. Rava, in the case where the person sold the property and he claims that he was living in it. The guy claims, I bought it from you, and the original owner says I've been living there the whole time. So over there, since I know that the purchaser was there the whole time, so the one that's telling me that no, he was there in the inside apartment the whole time, he's the extractor. So he has to bring the proof. Over here, over here, there was a guy that purchased the property, and he purchased the property of all the properties of Bei Bar Sisin. You're trying to tell me that this property is not Bei Bar Sisin, even though it has the name Bar Sisin? So then you're the extractor. Then no, I'm sorry, I just blew that. He's trying to purchase another property. He's trying to get another property out of the seller. So you have to bring a proof that's the property that you purchased that property as well, because originally it belonged to the seller. The purchaser is the one that has to prove that. Okay. Rav Nachman, there's no contradiction on Rav Nachman. Given the debate Bar Sisan, why does Rav Nachman say that the purchaser is the one that owns that has the property, and it's the original owner that's trying to extract it? He says you told them Bei Bar Sisan, Makari the Bei Bar Sisan, and we call it Bar Sisan. It's so far-fetched to say that this is not a property of Bar Sisan that you become the extractor when you say it's not Bar Sisan's property. In other words, it's so odd for that to happen that we're not even considering it a doubt that it's a Bar Sisan property. You're trying to tell me that it's not a Bar Sisan property. Prove it. It has the name Bar Sisan. But when it came to the case where there's two people in the property, and there's an original owner, and then there's a purchaser, he says like this. When I have there's a guy that's the original owner that's claiming that he was in the property the whole time. And that's why he didn't protest when the other person says that he was there. Now, the other person was there for 3 years. After 3 years, he says, I don't need to hold on to the document, because after 3 years, I don't need the document anymore. It's good enough. You didn't protest. I don't need it. So 1 second. All those 3 years do is they replace the document. Now, if it would have been a document, if you would have had the document, I would have been able to tell you, go prove that document is correct. It said, validate your document. We'd have to go find witnesses to testify that the witnesses on the document is good. So now, what Rav Nachman is saying is, now that you don't have the document, I can still tell you, bring proof that the replacement of your document is valid. That's why Rav Nachman can tell him that go bring witnesses that you were actually there, because I could contest the document, and you're just replacing a document. So now I can contest. I have the rights to tell you, prove that you were actually there. Okay. Would he not be able to tell him to the actual document that you have to prove it? Now we can also tell him that you have to prove that you were actually there. Let's leave the Gemara here.
Where did we start?
We stopped at 2 dots on Daf Lamed.
Who?
Yeah. This is where we're supposed to be on
Next one.
and then I turn the page, but
Let's get further. Blackbird.